Hey everybody, so in this video we're going to just talk about the welding, grinding, and polishing of stainless steel, and just going to finish off the build, and then I'm going to do a recap at the end of the video and talk about some of the lessons I learned through this. Working on the last part of this arch, and trying to get this is the solar panel out. So this is the piece I start with. And, this one here, basically I bent a long piece and got it cut to the exact shape I wanted. And now just weld the two ends together and then grind it out. Touch up, so I'm going to go and just run one little bead there and grind it off again. I got them pretty close. So the way I'm doing this is I'm actually just creating a visual line from this point to this point, over here to this point, so that this is straight to the back to the bar. So there's a stick about there. So 0.5, 0.5, look at that, 0.6, okay, 0.6, okay, that's good, that turned out okay. It's pretty close to what I was planning. It just, the bending was a real pain in the arms, because I have the manual bender over there. Doesn't make it easy, but, so hopefully the next shot is, we'll do maybe some welding, TIG welding, and then after the TIG welding, I'll bring it over to the boat, and then I'm going to install it. And we'll pray it fits. Yeah, we'll pray it fits. Either way, I think I'm pretty happy with this. This is looking really good. Still grinding. Just thought I'd do a quick close-up. So this is kind of a before shot here. So this is the welded, and I've just knocked down kind of at a rough level the welds here. And the discoloration's in place, and then this is one that I'm just still working on, but it's starting to look a lot smoother, and then I still have to polish it. So you can kind of really knock out quite a bit of the roughness of it, and once it starts to get smooth and you get rid of the discoloration, it starts to look half decent actually. So yeah, we're getting there. Just keep at her. Getting there. I think I need about another day of grinding, and I'll be pretty much ready to install this. I'm almost done the 80 grit, and I'm going to give it one pass of 120, and then I'm going to switch to the nylon and buff it, and then I'm going to use the foam the felt pad and seal it with the rubbing compound, and that'll get rid of all the little micro scratches. So we'll see how it looks when I'm done. I know there's a few little pits here and there, but that's okay. It's going to hold the welds. This thing's like super solid now. On to keep on grinding. Hey guys, just got the last piece here to do here on this arch. I'm literally down to here, but I thought I'd show you some of the steps that I go through here, just getting it from rough to polished. This is basically what I started with, was actually 40 grit, but these flap discs. And I would kind of go over my welds with 40 to take down the bulk. And then I would just go kind of like lightly around and try to smoothen out with the 80 grit. So I'm just going to do that here now. Okay, so this is the 80 grit. Okay, so this next one, I can't actually read it anymore because I'm pretty low. But it's a nylon disc, and I'm using this to just smoothen out even the 80 grit. So this one's kind of really fine, and it's basically a polishing disc. It says sponge polishing disc, and it's a really fine thing made out of nylon. Okay, so here's the disc, and this one here I go a little bit more liberal. It's more blending, so I get more. I kind of go everywhere I can with it. And I do that on anything that has, especially where I did scratches. It's polished. This isn't polished yet, but you can see it's really buffed out. And it's looking a lot better. So this is not touched, and this is smoothened out. So basically everywhere I went with the 80 grit flap disc, all those scratches are now kind of just blended in nicely. That's really what that does. I'm not looking at getting, you can still see there's like a pile of little scratches in there. I'm trying to get rid of those. So just trying to, what do they call it, obscure them. So now I'm going to use the felt pad. And they call it felt polishing disc. And it's made for the grinder. It's black because I'm using this stainless steel compound, rubbing compound. So I put this on, I touch this, and then it basically coats that in the rubbing compound, and then I go over the same area again. Okay, so you can see that this is where this felt disc, it's bendable, flexible disc, really polishes out nicely with this rubbing compound. And this is basically a special rubbing compound made for stainless steel. Okay, so this is the last thing I do, the big buffing wheel, and I just kind of go over where I went. So this is just polished. This has got a little bit of buffing on it. And then this is just flap disc only and raw. So you can see it's really quite a bit shinier down here. So I like this. This looks good. And yeah, so those are the steps I go through to do the polishing. And I'm going to carry on and finish this off and get it installed on the boat this week. Hello. Well, I broke my headphones. I I nicked myself pretty good, but the job's done. Actually, I went through a grinder as well. So I broke a grinder. I broke my ear protection. The cables or the brackets snapped there in the top, so I did a MacGyver here. But I'm done. So I'm pretty happy about this. I've got to drill a hole now in the side for where I'm going to route the cables for the solar panels. They're going to be fished through the rear leg, and I'm going to have a hole through the deck to bring the wires in, so you won't see any wires. Yeah, so maybe some things I learned. So I used a number of discs through this process. I started with the flap disc. Actually, no, I even used like a grinding disc at one point because I was just grinding stuff off there in the beginning. And I was making holes, and I dug through the metal. It's really thin metal, so I learned quite a few things with that. Actually, let's just start with welding. So my first welder was a MIG welder, and I was able to tack, but I needed less amps but more power somehow. It's like I needed like an instigation voltage, which I couldn't get. So my welder didn't have enough amps, so I ended up selling it, and I bought another welder. And that welder did MIG, TIG, arc, and I don't know how to TIG weld. And in the end, I wish I did, because that was how I got my holes filled. But anyways, I was doing MIG, and I could just never get the tack to hold. And what it was is that I was using 308 originally, and I was able to tack with that, but I ran out, and I bought 309 stainless steel flux core wire, and I could never get it to bead off. And I was talking to a guy about it, and the 309 maybe could have worked if I had argon gas and was doing traditional welding. But with the flux core, it was like almost like it was just evaporating and burning up. There wasn't holding the things on there. It was probably lack of knowledge on my part. So I said, hey, I know how to stick weld, and now I have a welder that can do stick welding. So I went out and bought 308, and it was like awesome. Like, what a difference. The only thing is I was blowing holes through everything. So my welds weren't that great. I wasn't really getting good welds because I was penetrating too much. So I finally learned that I had to turn the amps down all the way to like 28. But I have this setting on the welder where it does like a burst arc to get the arc going, which is like, I had an old arc welder and it didn't do that. And I was like, wow, that was a godsend having that thing. So basically, when I would tap the stick, it would come out at more amps briefly. And then it would go, and then it would go soft, so it would create the arc easier, but then it would drop the amps down to 28, and that worked out pretty good. So I was doing all right with it, but just there's some really thin, and I think what I did wrong is that when I was grinding my welds, I was grinding too much on the pipe, and I was making it too thin. Like, I was getting beyond like 1/16th thickness. In some parts. So what happened is I ended up just caving. Like, I just touched it and it would break. So that showed me there was no structural integrity either. So there's some problems on some of the welds. So I gave up after 2 months of trying. I got most of it kind of in place. It was very sturdy except for these holes where I had, like, not a whole piece was missing, but just like I punched a hole in it and I couldn't fill the damn hole in. So what I ended up doing was I brought it down to a fab shop, and they TIG welded it, and that was their explanation to me was two things. I didn't have my pipes tight enough with my cut, so my welds were too big, but that might have been a reaction of the arc stick. I was using a stainless steel 308, I just don't remember the box or the welding rods, so they're right here. So I was using these 620s, and the diameter on these things was 332s. So they're fairly thick to start with. They're not really small. What would happen is that my welds were leaving a big pattern. So I would go to grind it down, and then I just didn't have enough on there, and I was taking too much on the actual tube, and I wasn't grinding enough on the welds, just because these things, it's difficult to get in there tight. Like, it's fairly big. So anyways, I was just making it too thin. So I brought it to the fab shop. They did a great job of going over my welds, and they fixed up all the holes best they could. There's still a few little, I guess they're called pits. So I've got some pits in some core areas, but like, I don't really care. It's solid. It's going to last longer than me. So that was how the welding went, and yeah, I was glad to get it back. And even though it looked like a disaster because of all of the heat, I didn't get it, what do you call it, it was unpolished, right? So my next thing was polishing. So I got these flap discs, and the first one I got was 40. So I went with the 40 grit kind of around, and then I went with 120, and I found it was too fine. So I ended up switching back to the 80. And 80 seemed to be a good blend where I could get it smooth enough, but not super smooth. So basically what I did is I just took down the welds as far as I could, and I paid more closer attention to not go on the actual pipe. And I got them in pretty tight, actually, in most places. They're still, like I said, it's a prototype, first cut. It's a do-it-yourselfer, so it's, to me, it's fine. It's going to do the job. So then the next thing I did was, and I learned this too late, actually, but I was using this, I got this in the kit, for the polishing kit, and they call this a sponge polishing disc. It's made to go on a 4.5 inch grinder. It's got a bit of give, but basically it's like a piece of nylon. So what you do is you go over the where I had sanded the tubes down with this, and it basically kind of blurred the lines. It did an okay job, but then I found this one, which was Scotch-Brite, is what the guy termed it, but it's basically a polishing flap disc. But if you notice, it almost looks like little scouring pads that are glued on it, and it's quite a bit different than this nylon one. So this here really did a good job. So in hindsight, I wish I would have done the whole thing in this, but I'm not going to go back over it again, because this thing here basically got rid of every little scratch anywhere, except for the big, any deep divots on it. So that was good. And then last thing, I went through 2 polishing discs, these felt polishing discs. I probably should have gone through about 4, but I was buying them in the kits at $40 each, and I didn't want to. I just made do. And like I said, I don't want this thing to be perfect. I just want it to be presentable. And what do they call that? The 10-foot paint job. It's like stand 10 feet back. It looks great. You go up and analyze it, it's like, okay, it was a do-it-yourself project. But anyways, this did a really good job with this stainless steel rubbing compound. So I would put this on the disc, and it would the felt disc here. I would then apply it, and you could see the instantaneous work. But anyways, it looked great once you do the polishing with the rubbing compound. So I want to do one more protective layer, and I'm not sure. I've got another buffing machine like that I would use to buff my my paint. So I might go over it once it's installed with the last, like to protect the stainless steel. I think there's a finishing coat that you can put on it, more of a polish. But yeah, it's looking really good. So kind of like up front here, I'm going to have 4 solar panels. I'm going to have 4 solar panels on the back, and I'll probably put my light on here somewhere, my anchor light. I just need to come up with a way to attach something somewhere to do that, and same with the radar dome. I'll probably build the radar up on the top, run the cable in the same hole, and have that go down into the deck. So yeah. So anyways, I just wanted to say kind of the things I learned. I'm not a welder. I've got a lot of appreciation for real welders. I can weld carbon steel and galvanized steel. I do a half-decent job. But stainless was something else because it's fairly finicky, and you got to get the right pace and hold it right to get an arc that looks good. So like I said, hats off to all the real welders out there. I got a lot of mad props for you guys. And but I'm glad I did it myself. Like it took longer than I thought. I started in November, and we're going to be into April next week. But I did maybe about 2 weeks of work fabricating it and tack welding it in November. Then it sat. I didn't do anything through December. Then I picked it up around mid-January, and then I tried to do the welding from January through the end of February. I did like 2 months of trying, and then I gave it to the fab shop, and I got it back just this week, 3 weeks later, where they went back and did finishing for me. They spent 2 days welding it, where I spent 2 months welding it. So that just shows you what experience plays, eh? Yeah. So, anyways, this week going to install it on the boat, and yeah, thanks for watching the videos and the updates and everything else that's going on. Your thumbs up, your comments. Like I said, I'm not professing how to do things. I'm just trying to document the journey. And when I get my boat down south, I'll be happy, and I'll know that I, did it one day at a time, and one item at a time, one project at a time, and I'm not in a rush. It's a retirement project. So it's like once I'm ready to go, I'm going to go, and then work abroad briefly, and then retire, and hopefully do some cruising videos and swim with some dolphins. I think that's my bucket list. I just want to swim with some dolphins, see some sharks, and do some fishing out in the Caribbean. Yeah, a lot of things. But anyways, talk about future later.